Namaste and welcome to another special episode of the Vichaar Manthan podcast. I'm your host Sumit Sharma and it gives me great honour to be hosting this project. A project looking to explore Dharma, make it more digestible and see if we can recapture some of the ancient classical ideals of sustainability, liberty and flourishing. This is a very special episode. We've got multiple guests. We'll introduce them all and I'm sure they'll go through their own topics. But I think as you all know at home, we're on all streaming platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Audible, Amazon Music and YouTube. So today I'm very blessed to have Swami Atma Priyanandaji from the Ramakrishna Mission, Brahmacharini Sri Priyaji from the Chinmaya Mission and Dr. Sachi Kishore from ISKCON. Thank you all for being here with me today. Let's just go around the room, maybe let us know a little bit about yourself and which school of theology and thought that you belong to. So Atma Priyanandaji, with you first please.
We don't have any special school as such. Swami Vivekananda, following his divine master, Sri Ramakrishna, came to rejuvenate and revivify the Sanatana Dharma, called Hinduism popularly, and make it practical to enhance the quality of life of everyday man wherever he or she is. That was his main task. In fact, he famously said, the famous principles of Vedanta, which were discovered in the Himalayan caves by the rishis, and which were hitherto not open for the public in the plains. I will bring the truths from the hills and the caves to the marketplace.
Okay.
In fact, he said, very powerful statement, that the Atman, which is the core of the divinity in every being, if this is properly understood, and every man or woman in this universe, we don't know about animals what they think, they could also. Because Swamiji says the Raja Yoga, even the animals have the right to samadhi.
Okay, yeah, sure.
So the animal rights. If they think about the Atman, the reinterpretation of the Atman principle, which is the essence of the Mahavakyas, which says, Aham Brahmasmi Tattvamasi, Ayam Atma Brahma Prajnanam Brahma, which means the individual self called the Atman is identical with the universal self, which is called the Paramatman or Brahman. This was in the Upanishads and which was being discussed, debated, practiced by sannyasins in the four mathas of Shankara and later on also. Swamiji said this has to be broadcast to everybody because every human being should know and realize that he is not the body and the mind. So all sorrow and all delusion will go when one realizes this Atma Tattva, if the Atman is awakened. One glorious example we know in Hinduism, where this was tried practically and succeeded, was Sri Krishna's teaching to Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita.
Absolutely, and thank you for sharing. We'll go into more detail later on. I'm sure you have lots of examples
Arjuna
to give.
was depressed, everybody knows.
Yeah.
And perhaps Hinduism is one religion where depression is also yoga. The first chapter of the Bhagavad Gita says Arjuna Vishada Yoga. I call it Arjuna's depression yoga.
Absolutely.
If you are not depressed, if you are not unhappy, high thoughts don't usually emerge. They say when Valmiki shot those birds, he was so upset, then burst out and somebody said, you are speaking in poetry. Shoka shlokatvam agata. Shoka becomes a shloka. So Shankaracharya Bhagavan Bhashyakara raises this question in the Bhashya in the very beginning of the Bhagavad Gita. Arjuna is depressed. Arjuna is unhappy. Arjuna refuses to fight. What will we normally do? Motivational speakers, you bring in, and they motivate you, demotivate you, remotivate you, for which you pay reasonably huge amount. And you tell them that you have to do this, you have to do exercise, come out of a depression and so on. The Bhagavan straight away teaches him the Atma Tattva in the second chapter.
Okay.
Bhashyakara raises this question, Arjuna's depression, is it curable by giving the highest spiritual truths of the Atman? Why did Bhagavan go for this? So then he says, Arjuna, because of depression, went to Shoka Moha Mahadati, the ocean of sorrow and delusion. And the only solution to waken him up from this sorrow is the Atma Tattva. What was Arjuna's problem?
Yeah. Okay. So, Swamiji, we'll go into lots more detail, but if I can work my way around the room. But just to let our listeners at home know, so Swamiji also has a Master's in Physics, a PhD in Theoretical Physics from the University of Madras, and is currently the Pro-Chancellor of the Ramakrishna Mission Vedanta Educational and Research Institute. So thank you, Swamiji, for being on the podcast with us here today. Brahmacharini Shri Priyaji from the Chinmaya Mission. You are a resident monistic member at the Chinmaya Mission ashram, but let us know a little bit more, please.
Yes, so I've been with the Chinmaya Mission here in London for about 8 years now. And Chinmaya Mission, more broadly, the vision and mission is really to make the wisdom of Vedanta available to any person, regardless of background, etc. And so we specifically would teach Advaita Vedanta, but our activities focus on sort of all the ages. So we have antenatal classes, we have classes
Excellent.
for toddlers, infants, children, youth, adults, going right up to kind of senior citizens. Really the focus for children is very much on value education. As people move into youth, it's very much on kind of questioning and getting to grips with some of the fundamentals of the philosophy. And really for adults, who are living in this kind of very sort of fast-paced, sometimes confusing world, really about grounding themselves in, this very meaningful philosophy, which reconnects us with ourselves and also all the people around us. That for me is really what Vedanta does. And so that's what we try to do, guided by the vision of our Puja Gurudev Swami Chinmayanandaji, and the current head of Chinmaya Mission, Swami Swarupananda.
Very nice. Thank you for the summary. It sounds like a club that I want to join up to. You've got something for all ages. So
Yeah.
no, very wholesome. Thank you for sharing. And Dr. Sachi Kishore from ISKCON. So you're representing ISKCON, International Society for Krishna Consciousness. You have a PhD from University of Oxford, and you are presently the Hindu chaplain at King's College London. And we were discussing earlier that you lived as a monk yourself for 10 years as well. But please do share some more.
Sure, and thank you so much for the invite, and very grateful to be in this august assembly. Just a caveat, I'm a member of ISKCON, I don't represent ISKCON,
Sure.
And I'm sure many members will have different views on multiple things, but the tradition itself stems from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who appeared in 15th century in Bengal, and he spread a teaching based on the Bhagavad Gita, the Bhagavad Purana, and the Chaitanya Charitamrita primarily. And ISKCON is, in one sense, the institutionalization of that tradition, brought over to the West primarily by someone called Swami Prabhupada, who established an international movement across the world, beginning in New York, expanding to San Francisco, and then London, and other places across the world. I'm sure many of your viewers and you here are familiar with Bhaktivedanta Manna, which was gifted by the Beatles, primarily George Harrison, and it's a tradition that espouses bhakti, primarily devotion. I'm sure you may have seen sometimes on the streets of London.
Yeah, absolutely. All over the world, yeah.
Yeah, all over the world. But yeah, and so that was a practice that originated in Bengal, taught by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, known as Sankirtan, congregational chanting. And so that's one of the primary practices.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Satyajit, for sharing. And actually, for me personally, I'm surrounded by people that have come from different areas within what we call Sanatana Dharma. So it's a privilege for me as well to explore and test and prod. And, we've had the conversation about Vichaar Manthan as being the place where ideas can be churned and thought together. So by no means is this a battleground of any sort, but somewhere we can come together and discuss what the commonalities are, what makes Sanatana Dharma so Sanatan, and hopefully we have a fun conversation at the same time. So I actually got married at the Bhakti Yoga manor, so it was a great experience there as well. So thank you all for sharing. So
it's a good advert for Bhakti Yoga.
Absolutely, it's a fantastic venue. Honestly, they're very well looked after there. I'm sure. So, I mean, open question, and we'll all have to just come in when we think is applicable. But and during the research for this, actually, a lot of the volunteers come together with Vichaar Manthan were like, do the youth in the UK, Hindu youth especially perhaps, know what a sampradaya is, number one, and number two, what they all are. Like, have they heard of the Chinmaya Mission? Have they heard of Ramakrishna? Have they heard of ISKCON? And I think you made a good reference that you might have seen the Bhakti practitioners on the streets, and I've seen them in Venice and New York and everywhere. But do they know what it is, what it's about? Why are there differences? What are the differences? So that's the premise that I'm coming at the moment, and hopefully we can surmise some of that. So the open question now is, what is Sanatana Dharma?
I can quote Swami Vivekananda, who wrote in a letter, which is one of the favorite quotes of Vivekananda. He said, I quote him, to put Hindu ideas into English and make out of dry philosophy intricate mythology and pure startling psychology, a religion which shall be simple, easy, popular, at the same time meet the requirements of the highest minds is a task only they can understand who have attempted it. The dry, abstract Advaita should become living and poetic in everyday life. Out of hopelessly intricate mythology must come concrete moral forms. And out of bewildering yogism must come the most practical and scientific psychology. And all this must be put in a form that even a child may easily be able to grasp it. And that is my life's work.
Excellent. I'm a great.
I always remember this great statement. Hinduism is a huge jungle, wilderness.
Yeah.
There is nothing which is not accommodated in Hinduism, and therefore it is one of the profoundest, oldest, most misunderstood religion.
I have to agree, it's definitely misunderstood. I've actually been to Chicago, where Swami Vivekananda stood at it's now the Art Institute, where he gave his famous speech. So when I attended the World Hindu Congress a few years ago, it was great to be there, and it's fantastic that you can quote him quite literally. And it's interesting, right? It's the most wide, complex, also misunderstood, but it can put you on a path of great moral aptitude.
That's because since it contains everything, you don't know what to pick.
I agree with that.
So you go to a huge super mall
Yeah.
or a restaurant, so many kinds of food is available, you are completely confused what to pick.
Do you think that makes it difficult for other people in the world to understand what Hinduism is?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's what Swamiji quotation said just now.
Yeah.
To make all that and make it available to people in a simple way and make it absolutely practicable in everyday life of everybody, anywhere, anytime, any place. So that the quality of their lives will be enhanced. They don't have to believe in God. Hinduism accommodates the theism of the Buddhists, Hindu accommodates the agnosticism of the Jains.
Yeah.
And Buddha was a person who came and said, throw away the Vedas.
Wow.
And Hinduism said, oh, you are a great incarnation, come. I'll give you a place in the Dashavata.
In the 10 avatars of
The
Vishnu.
danger of Hinduism is a very dangerous religion. Because anybody opposes it, it's somebody absorbed.
Sure. And if you like to come in, agree, disagree, or have your own remarks about what Sanatana Dharma is?
I think, very much echoing what Swamiji said, which is that it really is kind of all-encompassing in terms of the thought that is accepted within Sanatana Dharma. The literal meaning, of course, is, in a very simplistic way, if you want to translate it, eternal truth. And I think one phrase which we hear a lot and maybe a little bit overused, but really encompasses what Sanatana Dharma is in terms of all the different traditions that are contained within it, is very much unity and diversity. There is a huge amount of diversity, not only in terms of the practices, but actually in terms of the beliefs, right? And yet we're all still very comfortable saying, yes, we are all, we all belong to the same tradition. And that's the kind of, that's the beauty of it, right? And as you said, maybe that is what makes it confusing. But I think it's only confusing because we don't necessarily have the mindset to appreciate how diversity can also, how there can be unity and diversity. Like if you visit India, for example, right? And someone who's never been to India before has grown up in the West, you land and you go to the airport and what you see is kind of...
it's an attack on the senses.
Right? And you feel like it's chaotic. But every single person there knows where they're going and what they're doing, and everyone is able to achieve exactly what they want. It's when we look at it with our very kind of systematized mindset and we feel, no, this isn't
That's
working.
very interesting,
we need
actually,
to make everyone queue and, we need to kind of put systems in place, but they all know what they're doing and they all kind of get along with each other.
Is it a British or a Western thing to sort of devise and understand logically and rationally? And I think the point you make there about that it's quite wide, but people know what they're doing. I've often said, you travel to India, travel 100 miles in any direction, you'll find people that eat different food, speak a different language, celebrate their culture differently, religion differently. Even the festivals they do is quite different, yet there's this connective fabric that sort of unites them all. So, Satyaji, anything you'd like to add on that?
Yeah, so very, very fascinating insights on this topic. And just, Swamiji was mentioning how, Hinduism is so broad. And I think sometimes, I remember reading somewhere, sometimes it's so broad that, someone can be a Hindu without even realizing it. But I do think terms matter. And so even when we use this term Hinduism, what does it mean and what does it entail? And I think sometimes the term itself is a little problematic. And of course, the term Hinduism really comes up during the colonial period in India. And primarily it's one that's used by the colonialists, the Orientalists, as they study what they observe. And I think they perhaps made some assumptions about the phenomenon that they encountered in India, perhaps, with the Abrahamic kind of religions of Islam, Christianity, and so forth. There were perhaps some assumptions that, such as, there's one prophet, there's one, one Bible, Quran, Torah, but that isn't the case in India. You have a plurality of doctrines, of texts that are important, that are prophets. And in many ways that makes it very difficult to define, but also I think it's one of the beauties because it's an accommodating presentation of spiritual enlightenment, which encompasses various paths. Just like for me to get here, I could have took many different routes to get here, but essentially you're trying to get to the same place. And with this Sanatana Dharma, I mean, Dharma is also sometimes very difficult to define. But the root, Sanskrit root dri, which means to hold, I think gives an indication of its meaning. And I've always took it, and my understanding from reading and Prabhupada's teachings, it's really trying to focus on what is the very essence, what is most important. Just like a teacher's perhaps dharma is to teach, a cow's dharma is to give milk. And so what is our eternal responsibility? What is our eternal duty? And this contrasts, say, swadharma or vanashram dharma. And very much it's to do with the Atma or the soul. What is our responsibility over all other responsibilities? And perhaps, I don't want to go on too much, but something we can look at more closely.
No, it's a great point. Thank you for that. And hopefully there weren't too many delays on the different routes that got you here. But it's a good metaphor actually, though, for, there's a Sanskrit saying, ekam sat vipra bahuda vedanti. And so that the truth is one, wise men recognize it by different names. And so are all paths leading to the same truth? I don't know, I'm not here to answer that. But what I am interested to do is discover what are some of the philosophical nuances between the different traditions that we have here. So, I mean, in no particular order, is there something in particular that the Chinmaya Mission recognizes and says that maybe others don't?
So I can speak only on behalf of our tradition and what we do within Chinmaya Mission. And that is very much to focus on Advaita Vedanta rather than any other kind of, school of thought. And so, like I said, if you're teaching a child, you're not necessarily going to be teaching them about Aham Brahmasmi and the sort of final Vedantic teaching. But the thing about Vedanta is that you're kind of, you have the sort of philosophical thought, but you also have everything that is required in a person's life to be able to understand that philosophical truth. And so you really have kind of a whole kind of framework built around understanding that final teaching. And that's really what we try to do in Chinmaya Mission, is provide not only the kind of, like I said, sort of value education, tools to kind of navigate through life in a way that will help us to grow such that we are able to finally reach this stage where we are able to recognize oneness between all of us. So yeah, I think it for us it's very much a focus on finally at the end of the day on Advaita Vedanta and those teachings.
Sure, no, thank you. Would you say it was similar in Ramakrishna Mission? Is it focused?
Swami Vivekananda brought out two particular universal principles. We talk about the universal principles. One, the divinity of all beings. Two, the oneness of existence. Interestingly, this is very much in tune with the scientific discoveries, particularly after the rise of the quantum theory, 1900, and the theory of relativity in 1905. He said there is a fundamental potential divinity. Each soul is potentially divine. The goal is to manifest this divinity within. Manifestation may not take place immediately. We have a seed of a huge banyan tree. Such a huge banyan tree comes to the tiniest seed, and the entire tree is involved in this seed. Potentially it is the tree. It can manifest later on. So all the beings in this universe, living beings, and non-living beings also included in some way, are potentially divine. They are now in a state of what's called avyakta, unmanifested state, and they can manifest. The fundamental potential divinity of beings, one. Two, the oneness of all existence, called the solidarity of this whole universe, which science now swears by, particularly after Einstein and quantum theory. 1922, 2 years ago, 3 scientists, physicists were awarded the Nobel Prize for proving experimentally the principle of what is known as quantum entanglement.
Okay.
One particle is some corner of the universe, another particle is somewhere else. They know each other and they respond to each other and they change each other according to the way the other thing changes. This was known, quantum entanglement, and Einstein, most interestingly, till the end did not accept this.
Okay.
He called it spooky action at a distance, which cannot take place.
Right.
But he was proved wrong, and he died a very sad man.
Okay.
Even scientists have their predilections. We think science is open. No. Every scientist, there are so many interpretations of quantum mechanics. Einstein did not believe in the probabilistic interpretation of quantum mechanics. It could be this, it could be that. He said, I don't believe God plays dice. Niels Bohr quipped, you can't dictate to God what he should do. He can do anything he likes.
Right.
So that apart, the oneness of existence tells you that even physically, Vivekananda spoke about it in the 1890s in the Jnana Yoga lectures, even long before science came to this conclusion, thanks to Einstein. Even physically, he says in the Madras lecture, I need not tell you, you graduates of the Madras presidency, how even physically science has proved we are one. There's a huge ocean of matter, your body, my body, all this the mountains and the oceans, all of them are only waves in this ocean of matter. There's arrangement, rearrangement of molecules, and mentally we are one. The cosmic mind concept on which Carl Jung was working, the famous psychoanalyst after Freud, and he was working very closely with Wolfgang Pauli, the famous physicist. They wanted to evolve the idea of a cosmic mind in which all thoughts of all the minds exist. So now we can call it the cosmic server. When you send an SMS from here to you, that doesn't come directly, it comes to the cosmic server.
Okay.
All the thoughts we are now having now are continuously and constantly being uploaded in the Hiranyagarbha, the cosmic mind. Anybody from anywhere can download it from anywhere. You need to have a password, which is called the mantra.
Okay. So you can tap into this. That's very profound. I like the way you've...
This is much easier to understand.
Yeah.
Because the youth and the modern people will understand much better. So mentally we are one, and long ago, Advaita Vedanta discovered that spiritually we are one. My individual soul is not isolated. It is one with the cosmic soul of the Brahman, and all the souls are part of Brahman, as Ramanuja will say. One with Brahman, as Shankara will say. Totally independent with Madhva will say. Whatever be the relationship, there is a continuity and connection, and therefore I can't hurt you without hurting myself.
Excellent.
Atmopamena sarvatra samam pashyati Arjuna sukham va idava dukkham sayogi paramo mataha. 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. One who treats everybody like himself. That is the basis of morality, basis of ethics, basis of love and harmony.
Excellent. So I'm definitely safe sitting next to you here then, so if you can't hurt me. But no, thank you for sharing that. Satyajit, anything that ISKCON is fundamentally aligned to or believes?
Yeah, I think Swamiji alluded to it, but it's, you know, when we talk about Vedanta, I think sometimes there's an assumption that in some worlds there's only Advaita Vedanta, but there's Ramanujacharya, he spoke about Vishishta Advaita. You have Madhvacharya, who spoke about total separation between the Jiva and Brahman or Ishvara, which is known as Dvaita. And then you have Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the founder of the Gaudiya Vaishnava movement. He speaks about Achintya Veda. So, and it all comes down to the relationship between the Jiva and Brahman. And there's an acknowledgement that there is a oneness, but there's also a difference with many of these teachers as well. Just as a drop of water constitutionally and qualitatively is one and the same, but you cannot compare it to an ocean. So on one level there's oneness, but on another level there's difference. And you know, I think if you look at the various commentaries on say the Bhagavad Gita, you'll see differing viewpoints. Of course, we have much more in common, and I think that's what we should focus on.
Absolutely.
But I think we also have to acknowledge that these differences also play a role. Like you'll see teachers in the tradition will quote Brahmano hai pratistaham. Krishna says, I'm the foundation, from me Brahman comes, or Mama vamsa jiva loke, that we're answers, we're like limbs or parts and parcels. And in many ways, I think you know, you have Shankar's Mahavakyas, Tattvamasi, Aham Brahmasmi, that are there, but then you also have Ramanuja talking about Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam, Brahman, where he says that Brahman is not nirguna, but it's also saguna, it has qualities. So you have these debates, and you know, of course, our traditions, whether it's the Chinmaya tradition, the Ramakrishna Mission, the foundations, you can look back at Shankara, you can look at the debates with Ramanuja and Madhva and others. So it's very interesting.
Yeah, it definitely is. And why...
Ramakrishna Vivekananda step in here and say this percentage. All of them equally true.
Yeah.
How can that be?
That's why we're here today.
We have been conditioned into thinking, if this is true, that can't be true. Now here comes quantum physics, here comes relativity. Because I've been trained in these two. I was fascinated. Somebody asked me, after doing theoretical physics, why did you become a monk?
Yeah,
I said, not in spite of it, but because of it.
because of it. That's super
Because
interesting.
whole worldview changes. Schrödinger, who based his quantum mechanics on de Broglie's idea of the wave-particle dualism, he says a wave can behave like a particle. Particle also should behave like a wave. Called wave-particle dualism. In this Nobel lecture, a Nobel acceptance speech, Schrödinger says, the earlier paradigm was either or. My discovery is a new paradigm, both and.
Both ends.
It can be this as well as that. How can different points of view, you are part of it, you are whole of it, you are different from it, how can these things exist? Here comes the Anekantavada of Jainism.
Okay.
Anekantavada in Jainism says, Anekanta means there could be different perspectives. Truth, being the infinite,
Sure.
can be looked at by different people in different points of view. They give the famous example of several blind men looking at an elephant.
Yeah, I've heard the
So
story.
somebody touched the ear and said it is like a fan. Somebody touched the legs and said it's like a pillar. Somebody touched the trunk and said it's like a rope, it's like a pipe. They were quarreling. A person with eyes came in. Why are you quarreling? Sir, I say it is a fan, but he doesn't agree. You are right. What you say it's like a pipe. You are also, how can everybody right? Everybody is right, but partially right.
That's true. That's true.
So everybody is partially right. What the truth itself is indescribable by the words. Only by experience you can know this. There's a theory of Einstein which says there are so many frames of reference from which you look at this world. Mentally also, Advaita is a frame, Shishtatva is a frame, Achanta Bhedabheda is a frame. Each of these great masters, they came to the, not the Ramanuja and the Chaitanya did not know about Advaita, not the Shankara did not know about that too. They come to emphasize, according to the needs of the time, a particular point of view. Buddha came and demolished all the points of view and gave to Shunyavada.
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to say is that all of them, all these great masters knew the truth in their own way, and they wanted to give the truth according, customized and fine-tuned to the need of the time.
Needs of the people
And Einstein said, each of these frames is equally true. Truth can be looked at from these various frames, and there is no preferential frame of nature. Nature cannot say, this is my frame and that is only truth. This was a great discovery which revolutionized the whole conception of space, time and matter in Jagat.
I think so, and I think that science nowadays is discovering things. And I was speaking to a friend recently, and he's talking about black hole and wormholes and kind of things. This stuff was written about thousands of years ago, so the discovery of them isn't something that's new. But it's interesting. We've got not different, but I think as Swamiji is saying, truth objectively looking at this, but there's different times and needs. So my question actually then to the floor is, how do we harmonize this? How do we bring this together? How do we reconcile, and especially for the youth of today? And I think one of the volunteers at VM was saying, I said it at the start, does the common youth of today, does the British Hindu youth of today know and recognize that we have these different sampradayas? Are they able to perhaps move from one to the other? Can they vocalize what it is to be a Hindu? Is that an easy task? Do you find that with the kids that you have? Is that something they do or struggle with?
So I think I can speak for the youth that I interact
Sure.
with. Again, and I think it sort of, I think there is an awareness. Again, it depends, to what level they've been exposed to different traditions, but I think there is an awareness of these different sampradayas. They may not use the word sampradaya, but they're very well aware that there are different schools of thought within Hinduism. And as to whether they can articulate what it means to be Hindu, I think, if you asked us, we would maybe struggle to articulate that in one sentence.
Sure.
So,
I think also it's very experiential.
Exactly.
So.
And I think that's the thing, you asked about kind of harmonizing. But I think the beauty is that even if you do follow a particular school of thought, and that's what appeals to you, and that's what feels true to you, that the nature of our tradition is that you don't by default, you're not falling into opposition with someone who subscribes to a different school of thought.
Sure.
And so the question of harmony is not, it's not like the onus is not on Hindus to be harmonious.
Sure, I agree with that. But if we look, we're in England right now,
Right.
and there are many religions and faiths and schools of thoughts, and it's diverse these days what you can believe in. Surely we have some responsibility collectively to be able to explain that to the other, to people that perhaps don't understand. Maybe not for religious purposes, but even logistically, financially, fundamentally, whatever. Do we have that responsibility?
Yeah, I think from that perspective, sure, I would agree that we are in a position of responsibility.
Yeah, and sorry, I don't know if I'm answering your question directly, but I think it's something it's an area that I've been thinking about and had discussions with, and it's challenging, and I think and again, particularly when we're communicating in a I guess a foreign context. I mean, I was raised here. I sometimes, I know this isn't probably something I should say, but sometimes I would describe myself as a coconut growing up.
Okay, fair enough.
What it is. But then, I embraced our teachings and traditions. But for an outsider, again, everyone has certain assumptions based on their upbringing. And I think the challenge with operating in an Abrahamic world is there are certain assumptions which may not apply for us as Hindus.
Sure.
And I think debate is healthy, even, you see it historically, debates between different traditions, but it was done respectfully. It didn't lead to war. It was just, and it was actually like common practice. It was encouraged. I also think that there are problems with the origin of the terms that we need to somehow navigate as well. Like the term Hindu is, again, it's in many ways it's a foreign term because of it doesn't appear in the Vedic text.
Yeah, it's like the Greeks, I think, trying to say Sindhu from the Indus Valley, and all these other terms.
The Persians,
Fine.
When it entered the Persian language, it was actually the river Sindhu, and in Persian it became Hindu, and even in the Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition, if you look at texts between the 16th and 18th century, which are not in Sanskrit but in the vernacular in Bengali, the only time you see the term Hindu appear, it's by foreigners primarily.
Sure.
They're described as Yavanas, foreigners or Mlechas.
Right. Mlech, I've heard that before. That's a derogatory term almost.
Well, it means meat eaters.
Okay.
I think it means that, but that's how I've seen it being translated. But it wasn't a term used within the community itself. And then, the British, the colonial powers come, and they have an assumption that the primary attribute of these different communities is religion. And so, then you have Hinduism, and you have censuses as well that define people very strictly by religion. And, those indigenous to India have took it on and try to redefine it, and I think that's very important and very healthy. But I think we need to think about more how the term works for us and where it doesn't, and the distinctions. And even in those texts, you see the traditions being referred to as like the Shaivites, the Shaktas, the Vaishnavas, and maybe also we need to have that to some degree, because in some ways, this is my thought, like Advaita Vedanta is perhaps a little more similar to Buddhism than Vaishnavism in some ways, although you have the Ashtaka and Nashka, those that reject the Vedas and those that don't. So I think it's complicated, and it's something I'm trying to work through as well, because there's so much variety and complexity in India. So, but I think it's healthy to have these discussions.
Absolutely, and we're not caught, but we're trying to define and sort of figure out nuances and harmonies and Western context as well,
And
especially.
you have Hindutva as well.
That's
another interesting,
very true, actually, and
which has a political dimension to Hinduism.
it's interesting the point you made though about sort of devising via religion, whereas actually it could be cultural and people in their way of life coming forward. So I want to switch gears into then, how could the first principles of Sanatana Dharma be practiced every day, and how does that perhaps unite us?
The harmony comes
Okay.
by emphasizing the basic spiritual principles and not the rituals and the various practices which people do. So fundamental Swami Vivekananda therefore go back to the root.
Okay.
Most of the problems arise perhaps from the translations and semantic confusion, even among Advaita, Visishta Advaita. Jnana word is used by Shankara in a particular sense and Ramanujan in a different sense. The Jnana is superior, or Bhakti is superior. You go to the root of the definition, what science does. When you use a term, first define that term. That's what law does. In this document, this means this means that. We unfortunately use different terms for different things and are quarreling about it without knowing we are talking about two different things. And I have a small objection to the word harmonizing.
Sure.
Harmonizing means there is no harmony before, and we, the wise men, will come and say we'll harmonize and teach to the people. There was no harmony at all. It is recognizing the harmony and not harmonizing something which there is no harmony.
Sure.
So we are not harmonizing things. Even knowledge, for example. Let us take a different example. There was a time in India when knowledge was one, akhanda, indivisible. The paravidya, aparavidya, one dovetailed into the other. There is one complete homogeneous piece of knowledge. Then we divided physics and chemistry and mathematics. And
To understand it, or why were we dividing it?
Because we tried to specialize this, and I am a specialist in this, I am this, etc. We did not have in our education, unfortunately, a holistic vision of what knowledge itself per se means.
Right.
Somebody says, I asked some of my students in Bengal, of course you should read the Gitanjali. They said, looked askance. We are students of science, as if they should not read literature.
Right, okay.
So this has become so sharply divided.
Yeah.
Now India is struggling to again reintegrate. So we divide, compartmentalize, specialize, super specialize, super specialize.
Yeah.
As somebody said, you are an eye doctor, so I went to him. I'm a left eye doctor, go to the right eye. So then we are struggling to reconstruct the whole thing.
Yeah.
Now, there's a huge movement in the West, particularly among the youth. How to be spiritual and not religious.
That's a good point, actually.
See, every person, every youth particularly, they are tired of this enjoyment. They enjoy. They know this cannot take them very far. They are tired in their backlashes, even in terms of health. Their health fails, and they say, perhaps I should not have done this. They are looking for something which is abiding, which is true, which is universal, in which I don't have to believe in a particular doctrine. You believe in this, otherwise you can't be there. Most interestingly, sir, I tell you, what is a Hindu is not defined. There is a great Swami Yatishwara and the Ramakrishna tradition, who preached in Germany.
Okay.
Somebody came and asked, who is a Hindu? Instantly he said, anybody who calls himself a Hindu is a Hindu. You call yourself Hindu, you're a Hindu.
Okay.
You belong to a universal tradition. You believe in something which is abiding. And the answer is, why should I believe in something abiding? Buddha said everything is changing. Change alone is true. Nothing, changelessness is the only criterion of truth. That's Shankara's idea. Ramanuja said, why should you bring change and changelessness into the qualities of truth? Now, there should be something abiding, something enduring, something which does not change. Why? Proof.
Okay.
The proof is, we have a proof in mathematics. Take the opposite. It's called reductio ad absurdum.
Right.
Suppose everything is changing. Life will have no meaning.
Sure. And I think you make a good point, actually, just even on that, life, there will be no meaning. People are searching for meaning all the time, I think. But also, I think you made a good point about the youth of today wanting to be perhaps spiritual but not religious, and they want to reject religion. Is that because they don't understand it, they can't define it? And it almost circles back to a question I had earlier.
The religious gurus, Krishnamurti is here,
Yeah.
because they say believe.
And what, children these days don't want to believe? They want to be shown proof?
No, you don't have to believe, but you have to fundamentally, there's a certain principle, you have to spiritual because you find out who yourself you are. I know many things, but who is the knower which knows all this?
I claim to know nothing, so
Who is the I which says I don't know anything?
it's a good question.
So this is the question of Ramana Maharshi. And he says, don't worry about God, don't worry about Brahman, don't worry about any theology, any theory. Just inquire who you yourself are.
So that goes back to experiential religion as well.
Not experiential merely. Deeply, if you probe, you come to a deep, even intellectual, unshakable conviction about your principles, about your reality.
How do you avoid delusion in that circumstance?
In that circumstance, if you have delusion, if you have sorrow, and if you have delusion, you will have sorrow, and constantly you will buffeted between joy and sorrow.
Right.
So that's why Gita says, are you steady in wisdom? Sita prajna.
Okay.
So you may be deluded today, and you may be very happy deluded. Again, some shock will come and then you will forget it.
Sure.
So you have to be deeply, intellectually at least convinced about the fundamental reality about yourself. So this is called paroksha jnana in Vedanta. It will become experiential much deeper if it becomes aparoksha jnana. So probing deep into oneself is a fundamental exercise which every youth has to be taught. Because they are probing into science, probing into the external universe.
But the national curriculum here isn't going to give them that. They're not going to be able to learn things like
You mean to
this.
say we're conditioned by curricula and the education system?
I mean, the children of today go to school, they learn whatever they learn
We are here as
there.
parents and teachers to teach them at home.
I agree with
That is the
you.
responsibility you are talking about.
I agree with you. But if we look at the UK and the children of today, I'm not one to answer, but school, come home, eat, play, I don't know. Do they have the time for stuff like this? I mean, you're interacting with lots of children. The kids that come along to the mission and certainly benefit, how are you helping the kids that are not? What are the programs? What about the kids that say they want to be spiritual but not religious?
I think it's because of a misunderstanding, and I think we've kind of hinted at this in the conversation so far. But it's really that if you grow up performing, firstly, if we ask what's the difference, right? What's the difference between religion and spirituality? Like Swamiji was saying, spirituality is very much about understanding ourselves, right? And religion provides the scaffolding for us to be able to reach the point where we're ready for that question. Because not everyone is ready for that question, right? We're interested in everything else. So religion is the kind of the framework in terms of how we live our daily life, the practices that are involved, that allows us to cultivate the kind of mind and personality whereby we come to this question naturally ourselves, and therefore we reach spirituality. So now if you've grown up in a way that you're performing rituals and you're kind of doing all these things in your daily life, and you ask your parents, right, every week or every day they say, right, sit down for prayers, it's time to do this, do that. And you say, well, what are we doing? And they say, don't ask questions, do what I tell you to do, right?
Sure.
Or why are we doing this? I don't know, but that's the way we've done it, so that's the way you've got to do it. So now if someone isn't able to answer those questions, then naturally you'll be put off, right? You'll start thinking that there's no sense behind it because the person who should be an authority isn't able to explain it to you. Never mind that there are plenty of people who could explain it, right? But they aren't able to. So you will turn away from that because you'll think it makes no sense. Whereas it makes a lot of sense, and even if it's in a superficial way, society nowadays is very much encouraging of this thing of, know yourself and kind of be yourself and take care of yourself.
It's become cool to be mindful.
Right, exactly. And so because there's also that support from the outside, then spirituality seems cool. Whereas to be religious and to say, actually, no, you know what, I do puja every day, or I engage in some regular practice is not necessarily cool in the same way.
Because they can't explain it.
Right. But actually, it's so deeply meaningful.
Yeah.
Right? Like, there is so much meaning and significance behind those practices.
I absolutely agree.
But the kids swallow all the scientific things which are taught.
Yeah.
In the class 5, you are taught the Newton's laws of motion.
Yeah.
Nobody says, why should I believe in Newton's laws?
Right.
Nobody
It's
asks
true.
that.
It's true.
Because it is said by Newton and because it is so-called science.
Yeah.
So if-
What's the solution then? How do we?
Solution is you tell them this is what going to give you peace. Yasmin sthito dukkhen gurunabi vichalyate, the Gita says. You are asking about delusion. By being steady in this conviction, you will not be agitated by anything. You will grow up, you look at this example, that example. The person can disbelieve. A time will come, the shocks of life will shake him up. And it is better to awaken before the shock treatment starts.
Yeah, I can imagine.
You may say, let me wait for the shock treatment. That you learn from the wisdom of others is called education.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you'll be reinventing the wheel all the time. I don't believe in Newton. I don't believe in Einstein. I reinvent the Newton's laws.
Oh, yeah.
That doesn't happen that way.
Yeah.
There are some authentic, documented texts, scientifically proven. So you don't swallow them, you take them to be true. Similarly, they are fundamental, documented experiences of our rishis or whoever, which is timeless, which is not bound by any particular region or tradition or belief. So you take and search for it and find them to be true. So Vivekananda said, go back to the source, not the interpretative explanation given by.
So actually, on that point, then, a few years ago, many years ago, I thought, right, I want to read the Gita, I want to learn more, get to knowledge. I thought, I don't want to learn an English translation. So then I thought, okay, let me learn Sanskrit. And the journey stopped, because that was very hard to do. Dr. Rishi Handa, some listeners might know of him, he does a Sanskrit class, and I attended that, but it was after work, 7 p.m, I was tired, I was falling asleep in his class. Literally after 3 or 4 lessons, I was like, I can't do this.
My suggestion is, you don't have to learn Sanskrit to be able to read the original. You sit with a person who knows Sanskrit, studied the original, and rather than going by the translation, go by how he explained the text in terms of his knowledge of Sanskrit. That's a very easy way. Now, any number of cassettes and YouTube lectures.
That's true, yeah.
If you are really sincere, you will find a way. Go back to the source. Never
idea.
go by interpretation.
Sure.
The interpreters always...
There's 100 different English translations of the Gita. I mean, it's...
No, I don't mean even the translations. Even those who wrote commentaries in Sanskrit about the Sanskrit text, they have their own interpretation, they have their own bias. So what Krishna said, Krishna alone knows why he said what.
Sure.
I think also the challenge right now is that the education system that we have in the West, and which India's also adopted, it's a reflection of the value system. And so if the goal of life is to become wealthy, if the goal of life is to become renowned and famous, the education system is going to revolve around that. If you look at the education system traditionally, you have the Varnashram system, and particularly with the ashrams, you'll have 4 stages of life. You'll have the brahmachari or brahmacharini stage of life, you'll have the grihastha life, family life. And so that brahmachari life was student life, and that's where, as well as becoming equipped to navigate the world, the material world, you're also equipped with spiritual knowledge. And I think that's what's lacking. Swami Prabhupada, in ISKCON, he would often say, where is that education department that teaches you who you are? In many ways, that's the most fundamental teaching. However, because it's not valued in a materialistic society, sadly that's what you see. And King's actually, sorry.
I was going to say, you're a chaplain at King, so you must...
Quite interesting, because you can see, the Christian faith, of course, this country is, the majority for now is still Christianity.
It's not anymore. Latest census deemed it less than 50%, but carry on.
It's changing fast. I mean, you see churches are empty, but the Church of England still has a significant presence. And King's was a place, and likewise Oxford, Cambridge, if you look at the origins, a big part of those educational institutions was that you would be trained as a priest, a chaplain, the clergy, And it was a fundamental part of it. And even still today, King's have something called the AKC program, which runs alongside any degree that you're doing at King's University, and it's offered to all students.
Wow.
And originally it was predominantly, Anglican Christianity was taught to the members of the institution. Now it's evolved to reflect the diversity at King's, but still.
Would you say it's represented enough? Could I, if I was at King's, go onto this program and learn everything about Sanatana Dharma?
Well, interestingly, last term, the final term of the academic year, they had an Indian philosophies series.
Okay.
So, which was interesting, but they have various topics. So they.
Is it on par? Could I? You said it's interesting.
They had something. So it's evolved because of
fine.
the dynamics at university.
Sure.
To make it interesting and appealing, they had to evolve. But still, at the very heart is ethics, values. So they had something called freedom of speech.
Okay.
Because particularly with the issues around Israel and Palestine, what you can say, what you can't say, they felt that it was important. So at an institution like King's, I see there's an attempt, but and we're talking in respect to a Hindu setting, I think it's very difficult to do with the current infrastructure that's in place. But just going back to your point about spirituality and religion, I think that's very interesting, and I think there's something that comes with religion that's a problem for many, like institutionalization.
Yeah, it's a bad word.
I found Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur, who was the spiritual teacher of Srila Prabhupada, who had the blueprint for the institutionalization of Gaudiya teaching, said that it's a necessary evil.
Okay.
And what I think he meant by that is sometimes you need, I think you mentioned vehicle. Sometimes you need sangha, you need vehicles to help you to make spiritual progress. But there's also something that comes with that, which is problematic.
Yeah.
In institutions you have positions, you have
authority, ego, things will happen.
Which in many ways it contradicts what we're trying to aspire for on a spiritual path. But it's also necessary because you otherwise you can have anyone doing anything.
It could go anywhere.
And it's not just a modern phenomenon. If you look at the history of India, you see kings trying to, like one of my PhD research, it was focused around Jai Singh II, who built Jaipur, and his challenges with practitioners and extremes of practices and how to kind of instill orthodox morals and norms and behavior and conduct in a landscape where sometimes due to your practice you transcend those norms and expectations. So
that is interesting.
Like in the Padma Purana you have this verse, Om apavitro pavitro va sarvavastam katopiga. So it says that even if one is unclean or clean, if one remembers smarat pundarik yaksham, you are purified. So what does that mean? You don't need to bathe anymore? So there are these statements, and in the Gita you have apijet sudaracharo, even if one commits the most abominable activities, if he is fixed on the path, he is forgiven. But and religious institutions suffer from things like child abuse. So many things are there. So how do you reconcile these verses?
Absolutely.
And and I think this is one of the challenges.
Absolutely, and I think I'd like to maybe focus our attention on that as well in terms of the modern day Britain, right, and the modern day youth and how they can stay engaged, because clearly there's a lot of important information here. You spoke about a vehicle. I think we have a highway here. There's enough thoughts and avenues and junctions that you can go down to introduce it, but also, I think our editor is going to have such a hard time putting subtitles on this because we've had so many different terms that we've thrown around. So if we can translate our terms as best as we can for whatever duration we have left here, but focusing on the youth, and I say the youth as in generally a growing society, how important is it for them to connect back with what we're calling a religion? So, we kind of spoke about India and sort of the challenges they have there, and you've mentioned the youth that come along to Chinmaya Mission. Is there a recipe for success? We were having a conversation earlier about sort of TikTok and Instagram and stuff like that. Like, is that the way that these really important teachings need to go?
I think Swamiji is on TikTok.
There is a statement.
Are you on TikTok? I'm not on
there's a
TikTok.
statement
He's on YouTube.
attributed to Vedavyasa. He says nobody listens to me. So we need not be so sorry about
That's true. Okay.
He says, Urdhvahur viromyesha najakascha srunoti mam dharmad arthascha kamascha sekamartham nasevyate. I raise both my hands and cry hoarse, but nobody is listening to me. What am I saying? Through dharma, you can have artha kama also. Why don't you practice dharma? Somehow there's a feeling that religious practice and spirituality that antagonistic to worldly success.
Okay.
If the youth can know, you may have better success through this.
They'd be on board?
Because you'll be calm. The whole problem, even the richest and the most powerful country in the world, you know what it is. They're unable to find a president. So look at the tragedy. That means there is a place people can't be calm. People blurt out all kinds of things and defamation suits.
Yeah.
That means you can train yourself to be calm, train yourself to the right kind of speech that you can do. These are the things which will give you the presidentship.
Yeah, I definitely agree, and I think it goes back to Sachiji's point about the value system of society if it was built upon those. So, absolutely, I think it was Narendra Modi that said when he was establishing International Yoga Day that if only all the children in the world practice yoga for five minutes a day or whatever it is, there'll be peace in the world in 10, 15 years. So, whilst I agree, I'm interested in how applicable it is to modern day life, modern day Britain especially.
See, the bosses of the corporate sector, not all of them perhaps, they are so impatient, they simply torture their, you have to perform, you have to do this, etc. They blurt out, they don't treat their colleagues and the juniors and subordinates like worthy as a human being. So if that boss can think a while and say, let them do, let me be calm, let my speech be pure, let me not blurt out anything. Blurting out and using language which should not be used, that has caused the ministerships in India.
Yeah.
People have been removed from their posts. If he had been taught to be calmer, he would be successful even as a politician.
Yeah, and there's a lot of big CEOs, corporates that are having mindfulness training and meditative coaches and things like that. So I said I agree with you already, but I think
what I'm saying is that's also become a commercial now.
Yeah, that's true.
So if you charge heavily for
it's worth more.
telling people that they should have peace, then you should be suspect.
Yeah.
Now what I'm trying to say is through dharma, artha and kama also can be accomplished.
Sure.
In Hindu religion, interestingly, these two are not compartmentalized. Worldly success is not antagonistic spiritual progress. Yajnavalkya, one of the greatest rishis of Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, had 2 wives to boot, and whenever he entered money, which was cattle, he used to go to Janaka. Janaka said, are you coming for cattle or you want to discuss Brahman? Ubhayam Vayasambrat, both my lord. I badly need some cows, and let me discuss Brahman, get some cows.
Okay.
Realization of Brahman can put you everything. Yavan arthavadapane sarvata samplutovadake tavan sarveshu bhutesh brahmanasya vijanata. Gita says, just like the whole thing is flooded with water, you don't have to dig a well for water. So if you have godliness, if you have purity, if you have love for everybody, and you will be the most sought after, even worldly success will come to you. And money will come, of course. Yoga gurus.
I think just like...
And I would say money is not evil.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's not. Even if you look at the Pandavas, when they were exiled, they had to acquire resources to engage in the battle. So and they were kings, and they're described as the most exalted of practitioners, devotees.
So Bhagavan says in the Gita, I am that kama, desire, which is not opposed to dharma.
Sure.
Dharma viruddho bhuteshu kamasya
I agree. Wealth is it's seen as an evil, but maybe in a capitalistic corporate environment, it can lead that way when things like ego come in the way, or when your dharma is "I want the riches, not for everyone" type thing. And so I agree to the point that money can be used as a tool, but don't we lose our way with that?
One thing I would say, and see, the challenge also is our texts are written in a certain context. A time where, nowadays, look at transport, look at communication. It's evolved incredibly. Prabhupada, when he wanted to go to America, he had to go on a boat, and it took him 2 months. Now you can, book a flight, you'll be there tomorrow.
Yeah.
Communication, right? Before it was, probably pigeons or, how would you get a message to someone? It's near impossible. So we live in this modern context. And I think if you look at the social structure that's shared in the Hindu texts, it's very interesting. Because you have the Brahmins, you have the Vaishyas, the business people, the farmers, because you also had a different system, a monetary system. You had bartering. There was exchange of goods. There wasn't, paper money, which is problematic because you can't track what the value of that.
We're becoming cashless now, but yeah.
But the structure was you would have the Brahmins, the teachers, the learned, the priests, and you would have the Vaishyas, you would have the Kshatriyas. The Kshatriyas were those who govern the politics. You would have the business people, the capitalists. You would have the Shudras, those that would work for others. But where are the Brahmanas now? And remember the respect that the Brahmanas had. They would be consultants to kings. So we need Brahmanas, we need learned people that are acquainted with our scriptures. But then we also need to give respect to the Brahmanas. Because right now you have Vaishyas, the capitalists that control the society. And the politicians who are meant to control the Vaishyas
they're funded that way.
So you have a problem, and that's why capitalism is the dominant, force.
Sure.
Because everyone is subservient to that.
Sure. No, that makes sense. And I think a lot of what we're speaking about also, I mean, we can talk about the problems of today or the problems of the past, and I'm certainly interested in the future and how we solve some of those things. So Swamiji's recommendation is that we all, learn this great wisdom which will make us more wholesome and success will come naturally to us. But what about beyond our lifetimes? What makes those teachings sustainable? Are we in schools of thoughts and mandirs and temples that will outlive us? Will those traditions continue to live if we carry on? I agree with
God has not given the responsibility to keep it going. Let us worry about now.
Sure. No, that's a very, very good point.
And the Bhagavan, interestingly, Hindu Bhagavan, Sri Krishna says, Hindus, I don't trust the Hindus, stupid fellows, they can't take care of themselves, I will come again and again protect them. Sambhavami yuge yuge.
Wow.
I finally think that the Bhagavan says, I will come. So, the great Lord has been sustaining the universe so far, will sustain.
And I have full trust in that process, absolutely. But if, again, very contextually to Britain at least, and if the national curriculum stays the way it is and the kids are only interested in the TikToks and stuff, my worry is that it won't sustain itself. Kids will be less religious and even less spiritual to a certain point. Because if we're in a search for meaning and purpose, they'll find it in something else. That might not be good for them or good for society.
Not for too long.
You are an optimist for sure.
People are telling, we are finding.
Yeah.
In the Ramakrishna Mission, some of the most brilliant brahmacharis are joining as monks.
Yeah.
They have had their doctorate in best institutes and IITs, and then go for the post-doctorate in some of the best institutes abroad. At the end of it says, there's nothing in all this. Parikshalokan, karmachutan, brahmano, nirvedamayan, nasta kritakritena. Experience teaches them. So, rather than waiting for that experience, learn from the wisdom of people who have already been battered and bashed.
Sure.
I did that, I was battered and bashed, I am so sorry. Please learn from my life.
Yeah.
So people are coming. Let's not be worried about it.
I'm not worried. I'm not worried, but
I'm an inveterate optimist.
apprehensive, and that's great. And I love that you're here giving that. But I'm here to prod that.
Yeah, I would also say there's, at least in the tradition that I'm familiar with, there's an onus on sharing what you have.
Sure.
You know, just as if someone gives you a treasure, there's an onus to share that treasure with others. And so I think that's embedded in our culture and our tradition. But as Swamiji said, if the message gets lost, Krishna descends.
It'll figure it out.
Even if you look at the, when Krishna reveals his Virat Roop to Arjun, he shows him the outcome of the battle. And he says, Nimitte Mataram Savya Sachin. He said, become my instrument. The result is already, we have a choice whether we want to be part of Krishna's Leela or not.
I have a funny take on this.
Okay.
The Lord also is very tired in his heavens wherever he is.
Right.
And now and then wants to come down. If there's no chaos, what will he do?
So we have to create the chaos.
This
Create the chaos. Well, look, we're in central London right now. You don't need to travel very far to see a lot of chaos.
So somebody has to create the chaos for him to. And he employs people to create this chaos so that he can come down. He loves his children.
Okay.
So this part of life.
Yoga.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
there's a theory in physics. Order comes out of chaos.
Yes, that's also true.
Order out of chaos is a famous book by Prigozhin, the famous Levolagite. So chaos is not that bad. India can prove this. Nothing functions, but we are happy.
That's still a happy bunch. Shripriji, I want to move the conversation on to perhaps when I was mentioning sustainability earlier and got quite quickly shut down, but from an ecology perspective and sort of welfare and animal, like the world is going vegan, but it's not, but it is. Like, what are your thoughts on that and how we make it more sustainable?
I think it's actually very much imbued in our philosophy to have a sustainable, or for sustainability to be important to us, because the idea of the world and creation is not that it's for us, right?
Okay.
That's not what Hinduism teaches us. It's very much that we're part of creation. It's for us only in the sense that this is a field for us to have our experiences, but also to grow and to contribute. And so therefore, also going back to the idea of, whether it's oneness or that we're all interconnected, it's in our best interests to look after this place where we all live. And so I think that idea of sustainability is very much in line with our philosophy, right? Sometimes, especially with Advaita Vedanta, people feel that if the philosophy is teaching you to negate the reality of the world, then it can lead to a carelessness.
It excuses you from consequence.
Right. But also, if you're negating the reality of the world without negating the reality of your own body and mind, then it really is an excuse. And if I cannot see myself as anything other than this person, I have no real standing on which to negate the reality of the world. I have to accept that it's real, and therefore I have to accept that I have a responsibility to the world and to society and to the environment that I live in, to give my best and do my best. And the whole idea of dharma, right? Earlier we were saying that dharma is that which, upholds, which sustains. Dharma is that which unites. And unity is not just between people, right? Unity is between all of creation. Harmony is between all of creation. So I think that sustainability is very much in line with.
And again, I agree with you, and the theory suggests so. Is that reflected in society?
I think it's reflected in, at least within the community that I'm familiar with.
Sure.
There is very much an awareness that we have a responsibility to do our best, for the world that we live in. I think we are very much, especially, even if you forget the idea of oneness, for the people who have love and devotion, the world is God, right? How can you go out and kind of treat the world carelessly whether you see the world as yourself or you see it as God? I think there is very much and whether that's, I'm going to do my recycling every week, or I'm going to, make sure that I'm not using paper cups, and, I'm going to, make those small changes. I think people are very much engaged with finding ways to ensure that they're living sustainable lifestyles. I think also and this is perhaps veering off topic slightly, but I think it is our responsibility as individuals, but also it is the responsibility of governments and corporations.
Okay, so on that point then, if we're doing it well inside our communities and we kind of see it happening in the rest of society, and now we're saying actually it's the upholders of this governance structure, whatever it might be, and as Hindus or from Sanatana Dharma we recognize and are aware of this divine wisdom, this knowledge, do we not have more of a responsibility to get that into the rest of society, into government, into society, into policy? Like, does that onus still not fall on us? It's a hard one.
It's a tricky one. I think
we claim to be the ones that know about ahimsa and all that, these kind of things. So, Swamiji, go on.
I'm slightly intrigued by you constantly worried about your responsibility.
I'm not worried. Honestly, not worried.
So let us not play God.
Sure, that's a good
God
point.
has a responsibility. Let us try to follow him, help him as much as possible.
Sure.
If he chooses us as his instruments.
People will use that as slopey shoulders. Oh, it's up to God.
No. Don't come and tell them I have something to tell you. Like the conversion people go and say, oh, you will go to hell unless you follow this person. Therefore, I have the responsibility to tell you that you should not go to hell. So I am here to convert you.
Okay.
That's the conversion people.
Fine.
So remember, Bhagavan says, no responsibility. Even Bhagavan says, I also don't have any responsibility. The idea of feeling responsible for doing something to the world. First do something to ourselves first. And you will tell like a thunderbolt. Every word will tell.
Yeah.
And you are talking about practices in daily life. More than 80% of Indians live in villages. Even now you go to the villages. Every day there's women, educated women, illiterate women, etc. do the Pancha Mahayagya, Vriyagya, etc. I used to see my old grandmother decorating with the alpana, we call it the alpana, with the rice flour, so that the ants will come and eat it. They will keep some water for the crows.
Sure.
And they will constantly, and they will worship. Millions of people even now in India worship the Ganges, worship the Kaveri, worship the Yamuna, do arati, reverence for nature. Not only deep ecology person who wrote that famous book, Ecocentrism versus Anthropocentrism, he says suddenly the idea of reverence for nature. Not taking care of nature, being responsible to preserve nature.
Sure.
No responsibility devolves upon us. If there is a God, he will take care of it. If there is none, it will go. Now, but reverence for every bit of nature. We worship trees, we worship animals. Animals are worshipped. We worship rivers. Every bit of the universe is sacred to us because it gives us a manifestation of God. The 10th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Bhakti Yoga. Bhagavan says everything is my vibhuti. The AI which is coming in is the vibhuti of God. Worship the AI. You tell the students AI is a great vibhuti of God, worship it and you will get strong foothold in the AI.
I was with you up until that point. I'm interested in the AI piece, but fine.
Look at everything as a great manifestation of the wonder of God. If you don't like the word God, as Einstein once said, you should learn how to wonder at this universe. The remarkable universe which has been built up by God, by whoever, the remarkable design, the remarkable everything goes. Man's intelligence cannot match even infinitesimally the wisdom which has built up all this. Einstein's famous quote, which I am fond of quoting, my religion consists of a humble adoration of an illimitable intelligence which our brains, which our dull faculties can comprehend only in limited forms. Let us teach our children, let us teach ourselves the remarkable universe which has come up. Our own body. I tell our students, don't meditate on anybody, meditate on your body. What a remarkable machine, self-regulating machine. We dump all kind of junk food into the stomach, and nature, the kind mother nature in me, she says, my child, why do you eat so much? And then makes me well. And doesn't tell me, again you feel junk it. If you tell the person, that fellow doesn't believe in you, you don't digest his food. He says, he is my child, let him do what he likes. So it is so impartial, that's most important. The infinite Lord is important. And then the 9th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Name Deshostina Priyaha. So I have no specific predilection towards anybody or against anybody. Samoham Sarva Bhuteshu. So what I am trying to say is that you are talking about the practice. Hundreds of thousands of millions of people in India every day worship the gods, worship the trees, worship the rivers, and look at the nature and feed all the beings around them.
Absolutely.
And Atiti Puja.
And Swamiji, I think that is absolutely magnificent and fascinating. But that's my purpose here today. Are the students at King's doing this stuff? Are they worshipping their books inside the lecture halls?
Not the city people. We have been hopelessly spoiled by education. That's the problem.
Interesting.
If we had lesser education, we'll be better human beings.
Yeah. And
Education taught us to be selfish.
Swamiji's going to go from this thing. That fellow, he doesn't believe anything I say. But no, it's fair enough.
ISKCON used to, in the early days in America, they used to get accused of brainwashing.
Right.
Because they were teaching people to live a spiritual life.
Yeah.
And Swami Prabhupada says, well, your brain does need washing. So, yeah, because there's certain premises that a materialistic society is built on, and it's problematic.
Absolutely.
And what's interesting, it's only now that sustainability has become trendy.
It's a buzzword for sure.
And there's a consequence of realizing that if they continue like this, it's going to interfere with their enjoyment. The motivation, in some circles maybe the motivation is pure and so forth, but they understand that if there's not a world that they can express their pursuits in materially, it's going to be problematic. From the position of, it's in my view, from the Hindu text, that we understand that, Brahman, Krishna is divine, but we also understand that anything connected to him is also divine. And so this world is a gift. And this body is a gift. This body is not us. We are Atman. So how, if someone gives you a gift and you disrespect it, you don't treat it well, it's not a sign of appreciation or gratitude. And so we're encouraged to cultivate that. And one pastime in the Puranas that came to my mind is even one of the avatars is Varahadev. And Varaha, he rescues the planet Bhumi, right, that has been dislodged. And this is also kind of symbolic that, the Lord descends to save Mother Earth.
Yeah.
And so we have a plurality of inspirations in our text that show that this world is sacred and it should be cared for, because it's... And a principle in Bhakti is to offer everything that you have back to the source. Just like when we offer respects to Mother Ganga, we offer Ganga water herself back to her. So there is this understanding and culture, and it's important that we look at these examples and the instructions and the guidance given. Our temple also recently has started, well, not recently, it's been going on for some years, should we be vegan, should we not be vegan? Milks and cows are intrinsic part of our culture. So there's a Goshala there where the cows, they live like royalty.
Yeah.
But they've also set up farms where ahimsa milk is produced.
Yeah. When my mum comes to Watford, she brings some back. We have ahimsa milk at home. Yeah.
And I'm sure, Swamiji, and you have farms in India where cows are actually respected and taken care of, and the calves are fed first, and then the surplus.
Everything is respected, not only everything. Because it's a manifestation of God's glory.
Yeah.
Vibhuti. Vibhuti is such a beautiful concept. I always think in the modern terms, God is signed there. It's a signature of God. Himalayas, I am here.
Yeah.
Ocean, I am here. So He is everywhere. You look at the whole universe and wonder.
Excellent. Thank you all for sharing. So, I'm sure this conversation could carry on, and maybe we'll have to do a part 2, but Hinduism beyond border, race and theology. So I'll ask each of my guests for some closing remarks, if we could keep that short as well, please. Just what we think about culminizing this conversation here. So, Shripriyaji, over to you first.
I think the beauty of Sanatana Dharma is that it already does all those things, right? It already goes beyond race, it goes beyond borders, it goes beyond, if you're talking about truth, right? It goes beyond philosophies and schools of thought also. And so, going back to something that we were talking about earlier about, will this sustain itself? Truth is truth, right? Truth doesn't need people to sustain it. Truth sustains us. And I think that, that there is work to be done in terms of making those teachings and the benefits of spirituality available to people. But in terms of the actual truth, which Sanatana Dharma, which Hinduism stands for, it was there, it is there, it will be there. And it transcends all. And that's why it's so applicable and so relevant. And that's why it's capable of, giving us peace and giving us happiness. And so really it's like the question is for us, do we want to benefit from it? And to that extent we can engage. But we don't need to worry about it, sustaining itself or not.
Sure. Thank you so much for sharing. Swamiji, some closing remarks.
Closing remarks. Wherever you are, whatever you are, whoever you are, fundamentally human beings have to be indebted to nature and vice versa. This kind of indebtedness, which is called the rina. You are born with 5 rinas. You have the debt to your teacher, your parents, Pitra rina and Acharya rina and so on, and the Bhuta rina. And about sustainability, you're repeatedly harping on, and you're worried what we should do about the sustainability. We can also think about it this way. Suppose we did not sustain. They got the reduction absurdum principle in mathematical proofs. What happens? Nature comes back as a nemesis and gives you 2 tight slaps on your cheeks. Nature sends you COVID-19 coronavirus, and the tiniest of the tiniest of the tiniest virus simply flabbergasted all the great Nobel laureates in biology. Nobody could know because of mutation and multiplication. Mahishasura is an example of mutation. The Chandi, Devi, suddenly Devi wanted to catch him, he became a lion. Then he wanted to catch him, became an elephant. He wanted to catch him, became a man. Mutation. And Raktavija is an example of multiplication.
Okay.
So these are allegorical things. Mutation, multiplication, continuously nature changes its form. You form a drug for this, immediately it changes to something else. Nature is infinitely changing with infinite variety and therefore infinite beauty. And this beauty of nature is a reflection of beauty of God. And therefore you can combine, don't separate out. Einstein did not separate. Space and time were separate. Einstein's general theory of relativity said space-time, not space and time. Later on, he had it after 10 years, general theory, space, time and matter. But what Vedanta, what religion did long ago, Hindu religion, space, time, matter, consciousness. They form one continuum. There's a word which used in physics. There's a continuum. So Taittiriya Upanishad, Annamaya, Pranamaya, Manomaya, Vijnanamaya, Anandamaya, he says each one is dovetailing into the other, and each one of them is overwhelming the other. Tenaisha Purnaha. The other one is only filling up this. There is the matter, consciousness, mind, they are one single continuum. And if you realize this, that very realization gives you the feeling. And therefore, nature will sustain itself. It is made that way. And if man misbehaves, nature will bring back his nemesis.
Sure.
You must have seen the famous film by Hitchcock, The Birds. All the birds decided to attack man. Man was helpless.
Yeah.
Recently, a couple of years ago in Bengal, this, what do you call the snails? You know, it's a snail.
Yeah.
Hundreds of thousands of millions of snails invaded one village.
Wow.
They opened the bathroom with nails. They opened the kitchen. They had to evacuate the entire village.
Wow.
Nature so the power of nature we do not know.
Sure.
The misbehave. You respect me, I also give you respect.
Yeah.
It will come back upon you. It is better to wake up before the shock treatment begins. Through education.
Thank you, Swamiji, for sharing. Satyajit.
just final thoughts is, firstly, thank you for inviting me here and being in such wonderful company and this engaging, interesting conversation. And I think it's important to have such discussions. And I think there's such a richness in the texts from India, the Vedas, and it's important that we take time to kind of explore the ideas that are presented in these texts, and particularly around the South. I think among all traditions, Hinduism especially has this emphasis and interest in who one is. And if you think about building a house, if the house doesn't have a good foundation, then likelihood is that at some point you're going to get some building problems, that the house may collapse even. And I think it's important that we understand who we are, what our purpose is, why are we here, and how to navigate our lives irrespective of the complicated situations we're in with this understanding. And our situation cannot be more complicated than, say, someone like Arjun in the Gita, who has, in a situation where he has to kill his not distant enemies, but his
acharyas.
His own teachers and
his Dronacharya is there. His grandfather Bhishma, he played on his lap as a child, and he's being asked to kill them, fight them. So there's a very special message in our text, or even the Bhagavad Purana or the Srimad Bhagavatam, which I'm familiar with. It's a story of a king. His Arjun's grandson, Parikshit. He has 7 days to live.
Yeah.
And sometimes we need to think, what if we had 7 days to live? What would we do?
What would we do?
So
These
these
are
are
about sustainability.
Maybe. At least one day of the 7 you could do that worrying.
yeah. So it's important, firstly, to understand who we are, what our purpose is, and then naturally, as a result of that, we'll be able to help the world in the right way and have an initiative like this, which is trying to address global issues.
Absolutely. Thank you for
Thank
sharing.
you for inviting.
Fundamental teaching always reverence. Reverence for our own body, as he said, mind. Reverence for everybody, reverence for nature, even for the tiniest creature. When I was a child, my mother used to say, when food is given, first fold your hands and pray to food, Anna Brahman, and then do pranaya, swaha, etc., and then only eat. Chant something to eat. Now I understand the idea. I teach my students. This food, I didn't prepare this food. Somebody from morning has been slogging. How did he get the rice? Somebody prepared somewhere. 100,000 people, invisible faces, have made this possible for it to get this. So raise your heart and prayer. Thanks to all of you who made this possible. Is it not meditation? Is it not prayer? Is it religion? Or is it conveying your thanks to people who have made me possible? One last quote from Einstein. He said, 100 times a day I remind myself that my inner and outer life is based upon the labors of other men, and therefore I should give in the same measure as I have received, and I am still receiving.
Wow.
This is called the cycle continuous. Evam pravartitam chakram in the Bhagavad Gita, 3rd chapter, is called yajna. The cycle goes on. That is sustainability. And the cycle has to be sustained. Don't misbehave, otherwise you throw out of the cycle. You have to follow the cycle.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for sharing. As I said before, we could probably have this conversation to continue.
We can talk through the night. But
We can do that, absolutely.
Mere talk.
Let's have a talk on why sustainability.
Why sustainability? Perfect. So just once again, thank you very much to Swami Atma Priyanandaji from the Ramakrishna Mission, Brahmacharini Shri Priyaji from the Chinmaya Mission, and Dr. Sachi Kishore from ISKCON. This was the Vichaar Manthan podcast. My name is Sumit Sharma. Namaste.
And thanks to the moderator, which you did so well.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Provoking questions and
I'll
inviting
ask you to ask one question.
Sure, absolutely.
Add it in between.
Yeah.
So I'll just give the context and why we want this to be. When we work in the society, West as well as in Bharat, especially when we look at the Hindu Samaj, when others look at the Hindu Samaj, they say ISKCON, Ramakrishna, Chinmaya, we have differences. We are caste, Brahmin, Kshatriya, or within a lot many things go on. And we touched upon all these differences. How, despite all these philosophical, social differences, we are one as Hindu, one thing. And what is the common factor despite all these philosophical schools, the difference in philosophical schools? What makes us one as Hindu? This is specifically for the Western audience, philosophical schools. In India, philosophy may be different, yet they accept it. So one for the Indian audience, that despite all the social differences, we are one as Hindus. For the Western audience, despite all the philosophical differences, school differences, we are one as Hindu. How do you articulate that?
This is exactly what we discussed so long.
No, Maharaj, that bit is not coming. So.
There's in Kenopanishad. At the end, everything is over. Then the disciple says, "Sir, please teach me Upanishad." This is exactly what I taught so long.
Sure. Anyone, if you are able to answer that question, if you had something to add, we'll slot it in.
See, the fundamental idea, we should project ourselves one as Hindus.
Yes.
That still needs some remodification.
Sure.
Now, because we don't need to project ourselves as one as Hindus. So we have our own Sampradaya tradition, which actualizes on ground, in our individual and collective life, certain fundamental principles in our scriptures, which have been realized and practiced by our ancients for millennia upon millennia. Those two fundamental principles, according to what I said, the reverence for life and divinity of all beings, and oneness of this whole universe, which is scientific as well as spiritual. This is common to all the sects of Hinduism, all the groups of Hinduism.
Sure.
Everybody says the divinity of beings. You are a child of God, you may be different from God, you are a chip of God, you are a part of God, you are one with God, whatever. There is one central being. You may not even call it God, because God is a very loaded word in Christianity. For want of a better word, we say God. We say Brahman. That also is not so much. There is a divine. Divine is also loaded with Christian connotations. There is one supreme being, supreme illimitable intelligence, as Einstein used to call it. So everybody agrees on that, and reverence for life. Reverence for everything. See, if a particle of food falls in the place and I tremble and my mother will slap, no, immediately take it out and then bow down. Annapurna, if you trample on Annapurna, you'll never get Anna later on.
Sure.
So that means every point is important. So I used to ask my mom, see, then how do you walk? Because so sacred, if I walk, then I'm trampling on this.
Yeah,
so every point I should go on. That means the reverence for everything has been integrated in all the groups of Hinduism. Everything is reverential, look at everybody. You can't be irreverent even to a dog or a cat. You have to be reverential even to the corona. There are people in Hinduism worship the Mariamman in the southern part of India. There's a goddess specifically given to pox, smallpox and chickenpox.
Wow.
There's a goddess of that who will take care of that so that he will keep you free from pox. So we divinize everything, and then illiterate children, ladies, old ladies, they clap their hands and pray to then the so-called scientists, the pseudo-intellectuals from the place I come from, they said the heavy criticism, they should be educated. So they are at least happy and peaceful in such corona, praying to God. And what do these people, scientists, say? What I'm saying is, don't look at everything from the lens of the intellect. Intellect divides, the heart unites.
Wow. All right, Nadeshi, that's your answer, I think. But
just on one thing, just with, and I think it's important, we have more in common than different. And I like this example that actually someone called Julius Lipner, he's a professor at Cambridge, or I think he's retired now, on Hinduism. He compared Hinduism to a family tree, a family. You have some distant relatives, you have some closer relatives. And so you'll find some Hindu traditions are more similar and some are very different. And what you'll see, there's certain core features, and this is for the Western world. Inside it's found, there are more details, but there's certain core features. So one is the acceptance of the Vedas. Right? This also distinguishes us from, say, Buddhism, Jainism, and other schools. There is an acceptance of the Vedas. There's also the ritual practice, or what they call orthopraxy. So you see the Ishtadev, the deity, maybe differ according to one tradition to the other, but you'll notice there's a common, they call it liturgical worship or approach to worship. And then there's also common ideas like dharma, karma, the idea of reincarnation. So I think there are certain, features that all paths within Hinduism adhere to, and I think these can perhaps be.
Beautiful.
Sure. No, thank you so much. And thank you to our audience as well. Hopefully, didn't
Who patiently listened.
All right.
and got